That's good.
Thanks for coming out. There's nothing I like more than to have people come to the farm. I've learned over the years, I've done it all ways where kind of tried to farm the land without having too many people come around. And then I realized, man, how important community is in farming. And I think that I would love to just say that to start with is that the community is healthy soil starts with healthy community and vice versa. The soil helps build healthy community, and a beautiful community showing up on farms helps to build that healthy soil. And so, thank you for coming out. It inspires me so much to continue to work on building healthy soils and feeding the community on the farm. So, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And really special thanks to the Valley Organic Growers Association and Learning Council for having us and hosting this. And we didn't get to teach this class last year. We were scheduled. We were the first ones to get the axe on the pandemic no classes. So if especially me, if I have overwhelming excitement and passion for this subject today, it's going to be because I had a lot bottled up in me from at least a couple of years worth of this. And, as have seen last year, the world kind of went to crap on us. And, there was birds falling out of the sky. And, I mean, it was just like really nature took a sort of a nosedive in many ways. And many people did too. So this subject about renewal and rejuvenation and bringing inspiration back into the soil and the passion that we have for that. We're going to try to bring that to you guys in a living way. And so we're going to make some of these different remedies, some really fun natural stuff. So um, yeah, I think Scott and I have been doing this almost for about 25 years now and being farmers and just really searching out ways to bring practical health to the soil without hiring the fertilizer salesman down the road, which will, is tough on the financial picture if you have to do that. But we can create all your fertility from the plants and the abundance around us, and we're going to show you how to do that today.
Partly show you how to do
Partly
that today.
show you.
There's so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. What I would like to start out with is my inspiration as I've been doing this here on this farm for about 10 years now, farming this land. And I'm a steward here. I live on this land and I care for I'm a caretaker here. Someone else owns the land. Monica and Wayne Wheaton own this property. And they asked me to like be the person who takes it over because they weren't able to continue to farm it. And over the years of farming it, and I realized more and more that I'm really a caretaker for the greater environment here, this ecosystem of this farm. It's 10.5 acres of land. And I used to do like all these tours, and I would tour everybody around and say, we have this 2 acre plot that we farm, and we have this 2 acre plot over across the road that we farm that are cultivatable, tillable acres that are fenced for deer and elk. And then we have 6.5 acres of wildlands that are not fenced. And that's where we have irrigation ponds and our irrigation water comes in up there. And it's a real lush, rich place that's got a lot of topography, a lot of hills, and little places for animals to hide out and wet areas and dry areas and big deciduous trees. And I would always say, well, we have this 6.5 acres of wild land that helps to compensate for the 4 acres that we fence and farm and cultivate and kind of do something, that's not as natural, even though it's following natural systems. And so, but now I'm thinking, like, and how the farm has evolved is that the whole farm, even the areas where we cultivate now, have become more wild. And what I mean by that is that we allow the land to not, we don't like till it as much. We allow the soils to have plants growing in them more often. And what areas we do utilize, we take and we do a minimal disturbance of the soil in order to do our plantings and our direct seeding and growing the crops that we want to grow for food. And we are continually looking at how can we maintain this more natural environment that attracts all this more life. We have like so many birds that just nest in come and nest in the trees along the edges of the field. There are amphibians, there's all these toads and frogs and snakes in these areas because I've gone away from using the machinery so much and tilling and mowing. which would always kind of just kill these cycles of these beautiful insects, like praying mantis, for example. Always at the same time, I would be mowing like my cover crops in the summertime. I noticed I was like, there's the praying mantis are thriving in these areas, and they inevitably get killed in the mower when you're talking, you're running a bigger machine. So I'm like, wow, this isn't making sense. And here I am, trying to grow food and further the life force of people in the community. And meanwhile, I'm like killing the life that's supposed to be growing the life or feeding the life. And so, alongside that, we also, in the last so many years, have been like noticing drier winters. We haven't been getting the snowpack as much. And so, in the last so many years, we've had some drought and feels like we're, in it, obviously we're in a very dry period. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get rain this summer. And it's going to be cool, wet summer. That's my thought. And, um, and so alongside not having much water, I've realized that we can go smaller in our footprint of growing the same amount of food as we used to grow on a lot of area and not do so much destruction with big equipment because you're trying to farm vast areas and trying to fertilize those big vast areas as well. And so now the whole way the farm is working is we're growing in smaller areas and using the rest of the farm in its natural forms to fertilize the areas that we are farming. So we have areas where there are wild weeds and hay fields up there, really green, lush areas, and really diverse culture of plants that we cut and put in compost piles. And we, along with some animal manures that we source and, other ingredients in the compost pile, old hay and leaves and grass clippings, anything that we can get that is that we feel good about, good resources that aren't contaminated with herbicides or anything like that. And we can make these compost from the other areas on the farm. And simultaneously, by doing that, we're actually enhancing those areas as well and enhancing where we're farming with this system of using our own more of a closed loop kind of fertility system, instead of buying from outside. And I've always been somebody not to, purchase much from the big suppliers, even if it's certified organic fertilizer from somewhere, where they truck it in. Rather, how can I get it from the local community? People that don't want their compost or their leaves. A few years ago, an certified organic hemp farm had some organic chicken fertilizer they bought and had too much of. I was like, do you want to sell that? I bought like 6,000 pounds. That's lasting us like many years of using it very carefully where we want it. Looking for different rock powders from like the quarries around, like the gravel pits, as far as getting minerals, always looking for what's closest to us and what's kind of somebody else's waste material we get and turn it into fertility. And also by using cover crops, and you will deliberately plant certain plants out in our fields like clovers or, say alfalfa or vetch or, peas, things like that, different legumes, even millet, rye, wheat as a cover crop in order to grow the biomass and also to condition soils. And so that's my way of doing this. And just this is exciting news that we're actually getting goats this year. And here's the goat queen of the valley right here. And so we're getting goats so that we can actually take the tree limbs, because we have so many we have so many limbs, so we can feed tree limbs and we can feed weeds to these goats and all this beautiful produce that like we have number 2, 3, produce that scraps, and we can convert that to our own manure instead of me going to another farm and getting that manure, and feel really good about that nutrient cycling, keeping it really much closer than even going 3 miles. I have an aversion to using fossil fuel. And so I don't like getting in a truck and driving somewhere to buy fertilizer and haul it. As much as it's a gift to go down the road and get fertilizer from somebody, if it's a good source of manure, I just am like, man, how can I get away from fossil fuels? And I think that's like key for me. That's what I strive for more and more, is how I can like buck the system. Like, no, I don't want that. We have a diesel powered tractor, and over the years I've weaned down from using 20 gallons of fuel a year to 15 gallons of fuel a year in the amount of tillage and mowing we do, to where I don't really want to use that kind of energy on the farm anymore. I like having human beings show up to work trade, to have experience, and having those people come and have a really beautiful experience, like putting their love into the farm and them getting some produce and that learning and just that relationship. I see how that imbues the soil and the overall farm organism with the fertility that we want in our community. And so that's what I do. And I mean, we could talk about all the different ways of building soil health. And but for me, that's what I do. And I thought I would share that because that's what I'm passionate about. So for now, that's and I have one little thing I could show. I have some tools that we use that are human scale, and they can even be used on few acres of farmland to like help. And then also some soil blocking stuff too. At some point, we could use show as like some of the like simple ways of helping to prove soil fertility in those kind of ways. So, but I'd like to turn it over to you at this point.
Well, thank you for. So I want to introduce you guys and ladies and gentlemen to some of the these different remedies that I make. So these are plant remedies. You guys can come on in the gate if you want. I need a volunteer or two, anyways, over here. If anybody, Don, do you want to help me for a second? Okay, so this is actually really exciting. Does anybody know what this plant is? What is it? Yeah. So this is the plant I'm so passionate about because if you go out even in the desert and you'll see, I mean, where it hasn't rained, this will be the greenest plant. So this plant is last year, 2 years ago, we had a class here and we made the alfalfa fertilizer. And this is a living fertilizer, right? So this is incredible stuff. I want to pass this around. So Korean natural farming. I used to farm out in Hawaii before I moved to Colorado, and I held class. I used to teach classes on Korean natural farming because I learned from the masters out there. And this was a guy who went around the Orient and studied with all the Oriental masters, and he put this together in a simple way. So it's all about making these ferments. So this is the fermented plant juice of valerian, of the alfalfa. But I want you to smell it. So this is 2 years old. And so in biodynamics, we are, or in my sort of agricultural realm, I want it to be in the realm of the living. I don't want dead. So we're not talking about, the dead, or would be like the more the mineral fertilizers and stuff you're going to bring in from outside. But these are living ways to create fertility. So if you would like, you can smell this. This is 2 years old. This is super simple to make. Use this in small quantities, and this will super boost your abundance of all your crops. So I will just pass that around, and you're welcome to take the lid off and smell. It's got an incredible smell. So Dawn, I would love for you to help me with this. So we're gonna make the easiest. So I'm just real quick. This is the easiest fertilizer. Actually, here, can somebody bring that bucket to me? Okay, first I'm going to show you the easiest fertilizer. This is incredible. This plant has tricanthanol in it, so it's a super. Thank you. This is a super root growth hormone. So, do you guys know Rootwise, Kevin Dirk and his products? So this one really turned me on to the alfalfa. Besides everything else, the magic about it, but the Rootwise, they grow really good cannabis. They're people. They posted a picture of this incredible plant that they only fertilize with two things: Rootwise and alfalfa. And so this plant grows everywhere. And if you get it, I picked this first thing in the morning before the sun came up, so this was picked fresh. So if you close your eyes, you might miss this next step. So pay attention. This is very important. That is your fertilizer. Literally, let this sit in here for 5 to 7 days, and this stuff will ferment, and it gets incredible. And so all the those plant ferments will release into the water, and you just dilute this 10 to 1. And literally, if you want to have nothing else, and you want to have incredible fertility, you can have this one plant. This plant will grow down like 50 feet. So it's mining nutrients. It's always pulling nutrients from way down. So this is incredible. Absolutely. If you want to have a good, healthy crops, I suggest this. I think Emily was telling me about how Scott used to take the alfalfa hay when you can buy it, and
Buy early night alfalfa and just put on the fields. And it's the best fertilizer ever.
so I
And
tried
for
this
manure too.
last year, and I spread out these beautiful alfalfa flakes, and underneath is incredible mycelium. The worms are going nuts, and it killed off the weeds, and now the soil is so happy and healthy. Okay, so the next step. So this is we're gonna make. It's interesting. It does have quite an interesting smell. So this one is so simple. This next one to make, and this is the fermented plant juice. This is from that book, The Korean Natural Farming. So Dawn, I'm gonna have Dawn, and if somebody else wants to help her, chop this up into like small pieces, about 2 inches. Here, these are a little bit better. There you go. About 1 to 2 inches. And so we're just gonna make this ferment. I want to show you because this is so important because it's so easy. Now I did cheat and I bought something. I bought brown sugar. Who likes brown sugar? I do. I like some brown sugar. So brown sugar this has got all sorts of minerals and nutrients in here. And so we're gonna make this is fermented plant juice. So FPJ is what they call it. This in the Korean natural farming is like the number one simple remedy to make, and you can make it with almost any plant. But we did comfrey, we did nettle, and we did alfalfa here. And I found this alfalfa, the one that you're passing around, by far the best. So we're only going to make that. So this is so simple. This is equal parts by weight, not volume, but by weight, plant material to brown sugar. So ideally, again, you pick this first thing in the morning to make your fertilizer because the plant contains all its energy, and you do it before the sun gets to it. It ideally has some dew on it, but I didn't see much dew this morning, not lately. Okay, so we weighed this out, Scott. So we got 2 pounds of alfalfa here. So we're just gonna mix that once I get this chopped up with 2 pounds of brown sugar. And you don't have to use organic. They don't even use that over there, but I like more organic stuff. So when you ladies finish that to about the right size, and they're doing something smart. See, I showed them the wrong way. I gave them the clippers. Ideally, you don't use the clippers if you don't have to, because then you're introducing the metal in there. And so you just mix these two together, and then you put them in a mason. We're going to put them in a mason jar, and you just let it ferment for like 7 to 14 days, and it will totally transform. And then you filter that off, and that product I passed around, that's what you use. And you spray a little bit on that on your farm, and it will ignite fertility like you've never seen. Okay, so I wanted to get into a couple other so Alicia said something. Yeah.
So that was what the one part of that fertilizer smelled like molasses.
Yes. Yep. You could actually use like 1 to 100 ratio on that. This is 1 to 10. Ideally, this ferment. You guys should definitely do this ferment. This is incredible. So Alicia, she said something like a couple of shows. No, she was like, thought she was talking. She's Alicia's amazing herbalist. If you guys don't know Alicia, she's absolutely wonderful and does so many things for the valley. Cooks a lot of food for a lot of hungry people and all that. Anyway, so she started telling me one of her classes about the plant allies, and I was like, plant allies, what's that? She said, well, those are our friends, and I was like, so I looked up the term, right, Googled it right away because it kind of struck something. I mean, of course, there's nothing on it, but then after sitting around and thinking about this, yes, these plants are our allies. So this plant in particular, this next one I want to introduce you to, super important. Does anybody know what this is? And do you know the botanical name? Equisetum. So this is Equisetum hymali, and you can see this one I went down this morning, picked by the river park, and you can see this is actually growing from last year. So this has these little this is where the spores will come out on this one, and this is how this plant propagates. This is the one they use for human health, right? So imagine this now. Imagine primordial earth, right? The gods have created the heavens and the earth, and now the earth is a massive, there's water, and there's a giant rock, and it's all moving, right? So the plants had to evolve out of that. So the very first plants on planet Earth were the equisetums, the horsetails. So these plants evolved as rock eaters. So these actually have the ability to take up all the minerals. So you could actually, this will take up like gold. So when you use this, so this is an incredible plant. So this is the one we want. I went and harvested this one this morning also. There's a beautiful patch of this. So you can see this is the Equisetum arvens now. This is Equisetum hymali in my hand. This is Equisetum arvens, the young ones. And they branch out. You can see they're more branching. And I made a tea. So this is the next, if you want to, this is one of the biodynamic fertilizers, but this is so easy to make because you just take the plant, you put boiling water over it, and you let it steep. And then you can drink this super good health tonic. but you got to make sure you get it from a good place because it does take up all, if there's pollutants or stuff in the soil, you got to be careful. But this stuff will literally, like if you see where the oil slicks are around the river here, where because we have a lot of oil and coal, this stuff grows out of the oil. Absolutely fascinating. So why I'm so excited about this plant though, besides um, my overall joy for it, is that this plant has more silica than any other plant on planet Earth. So this is like, if you were to burn this, it's like 90% silica. Silica is sort of the mineral you don't really talk about in agriculture, right? But this is one of the most important. So if you make a tea of this plant, and it grows everywhere. So this is the freest, cheapest fertilizer besides that one around. If you make a tea with this plant, it's going to super boost your beneficial microorganisms or the beneficial fungal network of your land. So if you want to grow beneficial fungus, this one will super stimulate that. So does anybody, there's a few issues people, especially like the cannabis world, they have is they get the powdery mildew, molds and stuff like that on your plant. If you use this, you will not have that at all. This is incredible. So this is, like I said, it's silica. This will strengthen your plant so they will be supercharged. So find this. It grows along the irrigation ditches. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible plant. Take this and you can ferment it like this and just put it in water. And you can dry it if you try to dry it like this, almost all this would turn white. Like the ghost gives up its ghost or whatever. But if you spread it out really nicely, and you dry it in the shade, it'll come out perfect, and it'll last for years. And so, yeah, I have a company. I have a nonprofit that I started. It's based out of Carbondale out of Sustainable Settings. It's called Biodynamic Source, and so we sell. This is equisetum from here from the ditch, but I sell this all over the country. Because we have really good equisetum here. So I make all these different remedies over there. I wanted to show you all a few. So this is the other big plant ally that we should talk about here. This plant, as Rudolf Steiner says in his agriculture course, does not deserve our customary scorn. Does anybody know what this is? Yes. So when I was stinging nettle with some other things growing in it. So does anybody have arthritis or issues? You can just brush your hand over this and you will this plant is incredible. This plant has in it the same thing that bee sting does, or the ant poison. It has formic acid, has oxalic acid, it has like all the minerals. So if you want to make another plant tea to boost your health of your soil, use this one. If you use these 3 plants alone, I think you can get away with not using any other fertilizer. This plant is incredible. This, yeah, so in Steiner's agriculture course, he talked about this plant should actually be growing all around our hearts, which he actually was saying it should be growing around our farms so we could use this. And anybody who knows, if you made an infusion with this, it is the ultimate tonic for your health, and especially for pregnant women, but beyond. So this plant, you should definitely, if you have a little garden, you should get some nettle and have a little patch growing, even if you put it in a pot like this. But making the tea is super easy. And then in biodynamics, we make a compost with that. And I just wanted to quickly introduce you all to some of the other remedies I make. So these are different rock crystals. So in biodynamics, there's 9 preparations, and this is crushed quartz crystal that's been potentized to collect the sun's energy. So this one actually has 24 karat gold in it. You can see little gold flakes in it. This one is made with amethyst. So is anybody into crystallology and crystal healing, or rose quartz? Rose quartz is really good for your heart. This one's really beautiful. You want to put some love out in your farm, spray some rose quartz. It's amazing what that'll do. I mean, imagine if you tap into that other force that's flowing all around us, and it's all here. We just have to wake up and pay attention to it. So, yeah, I make about 24 different types of crushed quartz crystal remedies that go through probably like a 2-year process in the making. This one is homeopathic. You only have to use homeopathic doses of this. So that's enough to like do this farm like 5 times over. But this one brings in the quality. So in the biodynamic world, in the grape world, most of the top vineyards across the world now are gone biodynamic because of the quality, not quantity, but quality. So this brings out the quality. So I wanted to. This is the opposite of one. This is our manure preparation, and this one stimulates everything below the ground. So when this one is an incredible beneficial booster to the worms and to the root growth. So these are homeopathic remedies. So Dawn, now you can take the sugar and mix that in there. So she got it nice and chopped up, and we're just gonna mix. Now, if you mix this and then just let it sit, it will be perfect. So 2 pounds of alfalfa, 2 pounds of sugar mixed together. You'll already start probably by the end of the workshop, you'll already see this plant juice start to dissolve. This in the biodynamic agriculture, which is what I studied. My teacher, Hugh Courtney, this book, Secrets of the Soil. If you've ever seen Secret Life of Plants, it's a really incredible book, but this one is a gem. So my teacher, Hugh Courtney, is like in the first chapter here, and he's like a Gandalf looking character. And was absolutely amazing. He died this last year, so now I have even a more powerful mission to continue this work. That book, Secrets of the Soil, I could not recommend it enough. So there's really quickly, these are the medicinal herbs we use: yarrow, chamomile, nettle, oak bark, dandelion, and valerian. And so those are the ones I specifically use to enhance the health of the land and in compost and whatnot. Uh, so the valerian, the last one here it's just the pressed juice of the valerian flower. So this is so if you have a living fertilizer, right, something that's alive, it should keep for a long time. So this is valerian that I made in 6/11/2013. So now you can take the lid off of this one. Now valerian generally it's kind of stinky, but this one is no, you good? This one's a lot different. So there's 2 normal smells you smell with the valerian is that people say is boys' locker room and sweaty socks. But this one is actually, yeah, so most of mine has that quality, but not this one. The 2013 is like a really, really good vintage. So so it's the flowers of the valerian plant, but this one is what we use for frost protection. So, a lot of these farms lost trees last year, and it's interesting, like Delicious Orchards, Big B's down there, where I've been spraying lots, they didn't lose any trees. And so this is homeopathic, like 21 drops per acre, just the pressed juice of the valerian flower. Absolutely amazing. This is our living phosphorus remedy. This one's nice though. I like this. I'm proud of this one. Now I'm wearing it. So, yes.
Free in any of those.
So comfrey is not one of the biodynamic remedies. However, especially after knowing Emily and seeing what she did with the comfrey, I became the biggest ally and fan of this plant too. So yeah, I should say that if you could add one more plant to the repertoire, comfrey. Comfrey is a dynamic accumulator, so it's just pulling all these minerals. And so like comfrey, it'll heal your bones if you take it. It'll like this will heal your farm too. It's this incredible gesture of health and vitality. And you can make a fermented plant juice with this one. Incredible plant. You might want to talk more about comfrey. This one, you could also just do that for your fertilizers, and see how easy that is. I mean,
When do you use hot water and when do you use cold water?
Yeah, the only one that I really got, Nate said it, with the equisetum is ideal. You use hot boiling water to extract the minerals out of this one. Everything else you can just do it with regular water, with cold water.
Matter if it's like sterilized tap water or ditch water.
Well, so yeah, everything matters, right? It's like important. That's one of the things that we learned to Enzo, that our teacher. So this is the one I just made I harvested this one this morning. You can smell it. But yeah, so ideally you're going to use, I mean, this is the spigot water here, but ideally, yeah, living water. When water's the most alive, it's flowing and it's gurgling and there's oxygenation happening and all that. So Ideally, the best water for making these remedies is what you want. But irrigation water's fine, rainwater's fine, tap water's fine. Let it sit out if you have to. You have to do what you have to do. In biodynamics, we have this great biodynamic calendar. So if you really want to boost your fertility, you can totally get in touch with the whole star, planet correlations that are happening with the moon and really time your activities. And then one of the biggest biodynamic farmers in Oregon said something that I can't forget. He said, because we were talking about this calendar and trying to do all these things on specific days, and he said, "I generally found if I plant carrots, I'll get carrots, and if I don't, I won't." So now I've like kind of tried to, first I was like, "Oh, it's a leaf day, I got to do but now I'm like, okay, I can do this when I can do this, and it's important that I do this. It's the most important thing to do it." So like my garden that's down in town is really beautiful right now. And I planted it like on a really off day, but the soil said, I just felt the soil wanted to be the seeds planted, and now the garden's doing great. So check out what Dawn's doing. You can see now she's doing a beautiful job. Mix that together. You see that? You see that? This is lovely. So now all you need to do is take those mason jars and stuff that. And I could just keep talking, but I'm not going to. No, this one doesn't. This is the fermented plant juice, so you don't need this one. This is pure sugar and alfalfa. This is the
Some the sugar raking that.
yes. So we'll filter it out after about a week, after about 10 days. This book is called The Spiritual Foundations for the Renewal of Agriculture. This is Rudolf Steiner's book on how to bring renewal to the earth. And so you guys know about Waldorf education, right? Waldorf education is the largest, private educational movement in the entire planet. There's more Waldorf schools than anything else. And that was about 10 of Rudolf Steiner's lectures. And this was 8 of Rudolf Steiner's lectures into biodynamics, but he gave like 10,000 lectures. So, this is just a drop in the bucket, but this is incredibly important work. So he emphasizes over and over and over in here, though, all of our agricultural remedies should remain in the realm of the living. So to buy in dead fertilizers that are not in this living quality, not like that alfalfa I spread or these are living fertility boosters. Very important. This book, what is biodynamics? This was written by my teacher, Hugh Courtney, who passed last June. And he probably has taught and led, and made more biodynamic remedies than anybody. He had the Biodynamic Institute in Virginia. And Hugh Courtney. This one is Culture and Horticulture by Wolf Storrell. And if you want this is a philosophy on gardening. This is one of the best books you can get. I just so love this book. Like if you want to know about, just the historical, philosophical, cosmological context of horticulture, you get into this book. It's excellent.
Practical food has how-tos, so and it's easily accessible. Like
Yeah.
different than trying to read Steiner.
Yeah, you can't read. Don't even try to read Steiner. Forget it. It's ridiculous. So ridiculous. This book, I just want to show you real quick. This is Weeds and What They Tell. So this is about the weeds on your property and why they're there. Why is the bindweed showing up? Why is the the grasses in this situation, or pigweed or other things? And these plants are there for specific reasons to heal your farm. So when we just decide to get rid of the plants, which are trying to do their business. And then this is a great one, Farmers of 40 Centuries.
Oh, I love that.
Excellent book, and this will give you all kinds of. This is what they were doing in the Orient to bring health and fertility that last for thousands of years into their land. So, there, check it out. Now we've got this is our fermented plant juice, FPJ of alfalfa. Can you, when you get a chance, you can write on these things what they are and the date. And I think yes. So this is going to take about 7 to 14 days, and then you want to strain out the plant material. Just strain it out and then put it in a little mason jar. Then you're set. Keep it in a dark place. And
Did you say application at 100
about 1 to 100. Yeah, so a teaspoon in
spoon in the bucket?
yeah, basically you don't need much. And I use that to boost like all my other fertilizers too. So if you want to just like, give it a super stimulant, there's that. Say it again.
Of any kind.
So this one needs to be made right now, this time of year in the spring. You want to get that young, fresh spring growth. So I would recommend you go home and make this remedy for your farm for this year. Make sure you pick your plants early in the morning.
Yeah, put it in a jar.
You have to put it in a jar. Oh, good question. No, so actually, yes. So what I should when I do, thank you. It's been 2 years since I made this. So when I get home, I'll actually take this lid off and take a paper towel and I'll put the paper towel on and I'll put the lid back on. And so it can breathe, but like stuff can't get in there. And that alfalfa, did it make it all the way around? Because I want you guys to smell it if you haven't. Good. If you didn't get a chance to smell this, you got to smell this. This is really good. Okay, so I'm just gonna pass this on over to Mr. Scotty again.
Okay.
I think says
All right. Yeah.
cut me off.
What's that? Did I cut you off?
No, I said sleep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to invite people to experiment on that bucket with dried comfrey. We let it harvest the comfrey and lay it out in the sun for a day and then throw it in the bucket with cold water. It just tends to work a little bit faster. I don't know if that's taking it out of the realm of the living.
Well, I don't know. I didn't really believe you like all of last year. And then I finally tried it and then I put it on my plants and then what I knew what happened was it wasn't me, but I had watered I made the comfrey with the dried comfrey, the tea like that, and then sure enough, the chickens knew that I had watered with comfrey. They'd not done it with the wet comfrey. With the dried comfrey, they just went straight there and destroyed all my plants right away. But I could tell that it definitely changed things dramatically by drying it. So I think it's good to dry it. I think you're right.
Would you speak about the difference between FPJs and the water ferment?
Yeah, real quick. This is just a water extract, a fermented tea. This is like the simplest, easiest. So you can just do this all the time. The FTJ really needs to happen in the spring at sunrise with the new growth. But you can do all sorts of plants. So don't be stuck on the alfalfa, although the alfalfa worked the best for us. So, but the recipes, if you ever, and you can look it up too, but Korean Natural Farming online, and they'll have all the recipes for it. But fermented plant juice, I love adding that one to all the other tonics. I did this. I taught a class up in British Columbia in Paradise Valley, and we made a big batch of this fermented alfalfa on a biodynamic farm out there. And I get a call like 2 months later. He's like, "Lloyd, my pasture has never been this green. I don't know what you did, but so this stuff actually is incredible. It's absolutely incredible."
I don't.
So is this guy here.
Oh, come on.
No, seriously though, like if you go around and if you hear people like, Scotty's got the best food in the valley, you keep hearing it over and over. And so this guy, he's definitely doing some really good work. I think we have one more question.
You mentioned, is it only do the alfalfa in the spring?
If you're going to do the fermented plant juice, all these plants this should happen in the spring because you got all that vitality springing out. So it's got all those enzymes, hormones, growth promotion, it's ready to go. So if you try to do that, a month or two from now, those plants are already like, it's great, but they don't have that potential. You want to catch that potentiality, and then you put that on your land, and that's where the magic happens.
Ineffective to do it after spring, or just less effective?
I think if you can, what's really cool for where we live, if about July, about 20 miles that way, it's, the dandelions are just starting to bloom. And spring is just happening so if I was going to go do this, yes, I would go get my plants. If I would wait 2 months, I'll go get them in the high country where it's just turning to spring. Spring's very important. Not for doing these ferments. You can do that all year long, all the time. The bucket.
The reason I ask this is my neighbor is an alfalfa farmer, and so I get blown in, and I have just random alfalfa everywhere.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to try this in the spring. I'm trying to the summer.
The rest of the summer, I would do do it in the bucket.
The alfalfa participated in the Should I mow it and root it? Is that?
Yeah, or you can mow it, you can harvest it. I love these are remedies we should be having internally too. So the comfrey and the alfalfa and the nettles, you dry these, then you can drink those, make infusions with them. It's the best booster So yeah, and like Scott was doing with the mulch, with the alfalfa mulch, it's one of the best mulches you can have. Absolutely.
People thought I was crazy because I'd buy like first cut, most beautiful alfalfa that you could get. And they're like, what? But I'm like, I'm feeding my soil organisms. They deserve that good food too. So, but yeah, alfalfa goes like 20 to 50 feet deep. So it's like going way down into the ground. And even when it's really dry, you'll see a field of hay that's a hay field that's all brown, but the alfalfa is still green because it's tapping in down there. So it's like magic. And I think it means the father of all plants, alfalfa. And I think it's from Iran, and it works in it loves alkaline soils is what we've got here. So it's perfect plant for.
And I just was reading in one of the alchemical tests that text that motherwort is the mother of all plants. So
Oh yeah, motherwort. I love motherwort. Okay, so I wanted to show you all like a method. I don't know if some people have seen this. It's a neat way to like say you're gardening in some soils that aren't that great yet, but you're going to work on them and improve the soil health over the next so many years. Okay. We can make some brownies.
Yeah.
Something. I think I'll leave this down here though, because it's kind of like a little bit crowded up here, but does that work for everybody? Or should I try to, because once I put up here, you can't see kind of this part. So maybe I'll. So what we do on the farm is we make compost piles, and from those piles, we add some of the soil from the garden, and then we bring it, we use a little bit of peat moss in this and some pumice, which is volcanic rock. We make up a soil mix. And most, before I learned about soil blocks, I would get soil mix and use cell trays, and then put the dry soil mix in there and plant my seeds in the dry soil mix and then water it. But I had to use these like cell trays that give you like one season or two, and then they just fall apart and basically have to be thrown away. Maybe you can recycle them now, I don't know. But this method I like because you don't have to even use any kind of tray. I happen to use these because I have them, and they, some of these are 20 years old. They'll last a long time. Or you can put the soil blocks right on old pieces of wood, or you could put them right on the ground, like put an old tarp out or something and put them right on the ground in your greenhouse or whatever. And this idea came from indigenous people, and I forget where at. But back in the day, imagine just taking some soil that you had in your garden and making a ball that would stick together, and then putting a hole in the top of it and putting a seed in there. And then you'd put that in your nursery area, which could be like under some trees to protect it from the harsh sun and out of the wind or whatever. And then you water those, and the plant starts to grow, and it grows into this soil ball. And then when you're ready to transplant it out, you take it out and you make a hole in the soil through your mulch or whatever, and you put it down in and water it in, and the roots just grow right out. And if these are separated enough, and they're not like, you'll see in the tray here, I'll show you this in a minute. It's a little different, the design now that Europeans and modern day have invented based on this old indigenous method. But back in the day, these would just be sitting like one there, one there, one there, with a little bit of space between them. And when roots grow out, they come to the edge of this, and they don't want to grow out into the air. And so they just stay, the plant just stops growing. Whereas in a cell tray, you notice the plant roots will come out and they'll just circle around and around and around and get kind of all balled up. And the plant, it kind of gets a little bit, when you transplant it out, it doesn't thrive as fast or as well as it could if the roots are just ready to grow out. So this method was designed partly with that in mind, and they call it air pruning, in that when you make soil blocks, if there's a little bit of air between the blocks, the roots won't grow out and just start to circle around. And they basically wait until you transplant, as long as you transplant in a timely fashion. If you wait too long, they will kind of try to keep growing, but they don't circle around. And that's kind of, I think, what really confuses the plant. So I just wanted to show you this. It's a good way to you can buy these little soil block makers. They're like 30 bucks, 20 bucks, something like that. And you make up your soil mix. You can look up a lot of different recipes and make your own, just as long as it kind of sticks together and works for you. This has some kelp in it too. That's one of the things. We do bring in some things I feel like that are kind of fun to bring in to make sure the farm has some added nutrient, diversity, and plant, kale has something like 72 trace nutrients. And, you know, sometimes I'll bring in something like I bring in a rock called calphos. These are on the dead side of, he's saying the dead side of things. But we use a little bit of that. It's a calcium phosphorus rock that's mined, but we use basically trace amounts of this stuff in order to just give the soil, give these plants a little other nutrients. Because I think that soils, you know, one of the things we've heard in our country is that even since like the 1930s, the soil scientists have said the soils are depleted of nutrients, you know, of minerals in our soils. So we're eating food that's grown and it doesn't have the mineral content to it. And that's so critical, you know. So what we're doing is looking at how can we bring in some of these things, and like how he's using the ecosystem to bring up certain nutrients up into its tissues that you then are able to put out and, you know, inspire the plants to take in, and then we eat that and get that food. But so anyways, we're putting that in here, and then we'll make the blocks. It's pretty fun. You can get the kids to do this. And so this tray could hold 50 of these 2-inch blocks. You know, we'll put 50 in there, and there's not very much space between them, but there's a little bit. And this one's set up. I have a bunch of different kinds of these tools. Some make these little dibble marks, and then you put your seed right in there, and then you put a little bit of more soil on the top, and then water it, and then it'll grow. And then after so many weeks, these are parsley plants that need to be transplanted out. In fact, tomorrow, I think. Yeah. And so like the roots are coming out the bottom and stuff, but they're not circling around, and they're perfect pretty much right now. And they have like a good bit of strength to them. Like they're not gonna, like these ones will fall apart more right now. Like they're gonna, you know, where this is, the root is pretty holding it together. Sometimes when I transplant, I used to just drop them from high up. But I like, nah, we're getting more sensitive to everything nowadays. We're getting more careful with our plants. So, but these will get planted out. And then what that does is this is already like a lot of life in here. And if soils are out there in the field, like, and if there hasn't been much irrigation water and you have dry soils, they're not, you know, they need water to be active, and, you know, they'll get the bacteria moving, you know, going. And whereas this plant's growing in an area where a little bit of water is all you need to get them going, and then you plant them out and you water them very specifically. You don't need a big rain bird to water them in or anything. And therefore you're giving them the nutrient you know, this nutrient packet here will feed this plant for a very long time. And even when the plant is long gone, done, this will still be in the soil slowly, you know, just being part of your soils, as long as you're not like tilling the soil so much that it's dispersing it out and like grinding it up and, you know, whatever, but it's still going to be there for a long time. So it's adding a small amount of nutrient to inspire, you know, and life, to inspire the soil to grow and to become alive, and to just add a little bit of that something extra special. And so that's what we do here, because we, you know, I don't have big truckloads of fertility coming in, and I choose not to do that. I'd rather have the plants actually really kind of work for their nutrients and be like, I've heard a lot of herbalists say this, and healers that work with herbs. They say, you know, the plants that seem to have the most vitality to heal are the ones that are like living out there in the edge some. They're like out in the wild. They're like, you know, they don't get rained on. They don't get water all the time. They don't get somebody giving them choice fertilizer all the time. They're actually like really having to live life and become really strong. And then when we use that as medicine, or as food as medicine, was what I believe, it is actually able to, that plant is actually able to really feed us, you know, in a way that a lot of food, I think, is like, looks good, might taste good enough, but it just doesn't quite have that like special energy to it, you know? So, but anyways, I wanted to show this method here. And then the other thing I want to show you guys is some of the low-tech tools that we use on the farm. Manage this one here, tool. And so what we're doing on the farm more and more and more is like, thing that's growing wild, the right here, lots of alfalfa on the farm from here, and we letting it into seed and it moves. If I was always mowing it down before it got to chance to go to seed, we wouldn't have very much alfalfa. But over the years, and I've also planted a lot of cover crops on the farm, and just years and years of vegetable growing, we allow a lot of our vegetables to go to seed. Even just like not even saving the seed off that crop necessarily, but letting it go to seed so that then it can even be a wild weed eventually. And then whenever you have those just growing along your air, you know, these areas here, like the headlands, we call them, the areas around the farm where you're not actually going to grow a crop, but it's like a good place for, like, you know, plant diversity, good place for animals to live, you know, grasshoppers, whatever, you know, all the creatures, great and small, get a chance to like live in this environment. But also what we get to do with this is we get to cut it. And my scythe probably isn't very sharp at the moment. I didn't sharpen it today, but we can cut this. That's not very sharp. So, but anyways, we can cut this with this high-tech tool. I should have sharpened it. And then we can take this, and if it's not too, if you don't have the weed seeds in here, you can use it to mulch your lemon balm right here, for example. Or you can take it and feed it to your animals, and they convert it into fertility through their manure. Or we could put it in a compost pile, added with like vegetable scraps and some other manure, whatever, and make compost. So all the areas of the farm, you know, what it is are ways of like generating fertility for your crops that you're going to grow for food or medicine or flowers or whatever. And so that's this basic tool. And I really like the non-engine type tools the best. And then this actually goes with this is a rake. These are both European inventions, like they're used for haymaking in Europe. And so you can use the rake to rake up your stuff. And then these are tools we use, basic hoes. A lot of you probably have used these. This is like the best hoe I've ever, type of hoe that you use. And it's just a really nice one if you are going to expose the soil, and like, you know, this isn't like the best practice maybe right here. Like we have soil that's not anything growing in it, but we're getting it ready to plant stuff in. But also I had this epiphany this morning that I want to actually build, I have another area where we build our compost piles, because for years and years and years, we would have compost piles here, but it would attract skunks, and then our dog would get sprayed. And also we were like, well, the compost piles taking up the space of where we can grow more food. So I put them in another area. And then, but this morning, I'm like, I want to move my compost piles back over here so I can start to do demonstrations on how to build compost piles. And then when people come to the farm, they can walk up, and right here we can have our compost pile. So this soil here is some of the like least fertile soil on the whole farm. And I think it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't have a lot of humus to it. So I'm thinking of just building compost piles right here. We'll have piles here, and then we can have it as like first and foremost when people come in. That's like, you know, one of the things you really want to see is how do you generate your fertility? And that's one of the ways. So anyways, but back to this, these are the kind of tools we use if we want to cultivate between rows. Like here's some echinacea right here, and then there's lemon balm in between them. We could go down the row and just use this tool like this, and pretty fast go through and like cultivate, you know. And like there's like, I just saw another echinacea coming up. I can be careful to go around them and everything. But this is how we basically take down the weeds, keep ahead of the weeds. We're kind of management. It's a weed management kind of an idea. And meanwhile, those weeds are being chopped in and feeding the soil. So it's an ongoing, free for the taking fertility part of the farm, is that those never-ending supply of weeds that just keep coming up. So that's kind of how we do it. And then this tool here is a really nice one for whenever you have big long rows. You can get a wheel hoe, and it has a similar blade on it. And then you can go down and really work the soil pretty fast too. And then, then you can change it to different size blades or different attachments to this. But this is a really nice tool in order to get, for a garden or small farm. And it's, this is made like, I think maybe by Amish people, and just a fun kind of way to go back in time as far as using tools that feel good to use too, and just simple and ways to manage fertility. It might seem like we're just trying to kill weeds, but really I say it's managing fertility instead, so. This one's a wheel hoe, this one. Yeah, and this is a company called Haas in Kentucky, I think. Other companies build them, but this one I found to be really strong. We use these a lot, and they don't break. We've broken other ones that, that are just not as good, but that's kind of what we do. It's like the idea, I think, is like work with nature. We're taught almost to kind of like work against it. And, over the years, you start to say, all this stuff is kind of like, just kind of showing, like always with such a force. Nature's just so amazing in its way of providing for us. And if we just start to get conscious of that, that's what I'm starting to see, is that like, wow, it's just like right here, like you just grab this stuff. You don't have to go buy fertility. It's like, it's just coming on right there like that, And, there's different ways of managing that, but that's how we do it. So.
It patiently waits for us to wake up.
Yeah. So. Any other questions?
What do you have growing over there?
Those are nettles right there. They're right there, that green patch. Yeah, so we have some stinging nettles right there, and that you can see how they're smaller down here. The fertility is less right here in this area. But we've had those. I got those from Alicia Michelson 3 years ago now, and 2-3 years ago, and I planted them there, and we eat them all the time. I even sell them, and then lately I had a sore knee. I've had a little, like, just from in the springtime being really busy and just was sore, and so yesterday I stung myself with some. And it really does hurt, and but man, it instantly took away the swelling of my knee, and I was able to like bend my knee the whole way without feeling any pain. Whereas just 5 minutes before that, it was like, whoa, I really need to like rest this knee, or put some salve on it or something, like arnica or something. And so I just stung them, and it was like instantly, yeah. So it's powerful stuff, these plants, and yeah, so.
What other perennials do you find grow back here? Obviously, the lemon balm's doing really well.
Yeah, lemon balm does really well. We have the what do you call it? The alfalfa, of course, and then comfrey. Comfrey does really well here, and I like comfrey. I actually use it internally too as an infusion. Dry it and then make an infusion. I don't drink it every day or anything, but like once a week maybe. And but good topically, so yeah. And then like let's see, what else? There's somebody hollering down there. What are some other ones we use here? Like the
Sage.
Oh yeah, the salvia sage for sure, Like I don't grow up, mostly my thing is annual vegetables, that's what I've done for a long time. But as far as perennials, like, yeah, clovers and bindweed. It's probably actually, and
Well, we've been
white top.
We've been researching a lot about the bindweed, and it has like incredible properties. Maybe Lloyd knows more, but it's like medicinal. It's like has cancer fighting properties and all this stuff. And same with the white top. I've been researching it because it's like such an abundance.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
You can eat it,
It
actually.
smells good. It's in the mustard
Yep,
family.
yeah. It's like some in Italy, they call it something like a broccoli of some sort, because it has these little florets that first, and you can eat them, and they're really delicious, a little spicy, and yeah. We actually do a green drink like we've just started to, and my friend Katrina Blair in Durango, she inspired me to like do green drinks a long time ago, and I kind of mess with it here and there. And lately though, just in the last so many years, this whole idea of using weeds as a tonic for the land, I'm like, whoa, I should really be just doing the tonic for myself too. So research it. She has a great book, something like 13 Wild Weeds or something. But she swears by it. I used to live on her land with my family a long time ago, and she every morning would get up and do like a blender with like comfrey and other wild weeds and an apple or whatever in there and drink that, strain it off and drink it just like every morning. And we started doing this, and it's like one of the most delicious and just you feel vital, and because these plants are bringing up all these different nutrients.
We'll put the alfalfa in there, and the dandelion.
Oh yeah, dandelion. Katrina Blair, she's in Durango, and in fact, she's
coming.
she's going to be coming up a couple different times this season. Yeah.
I think it's the 20th and the 21st. She's coming out to Crawford for a weekend. Plant mushrooms and a spring plant walk.
Yeah, and then maybe another time too. I forget. Yeah. But she's inspires a lot of people to use the wild weeds and just to look at that differently. I mean, I know some weeds we don't want to let them go to seed and maybe get into the neighbor's field. They don't want them in for their livestock. I totally get that, and we have to be careful how we do manage them. And some weeds are very painful, or they give your bicycle flat tires, which I don't like. So we have to be careful. The thistle is hard on the feet, and we have some thistle areas. But again, thistle is extremely nutritious too. But be careful. You don't let them get out of control too. It's a management thing, and so I think they're here to help us really heal. So.
Do you always turn over your cover crops, or do you let them just go?
Well, you mean as far as turning them in,
Yeah,
incorporating
turning
them in, like with a disc or a tiller or something like that? So I've done it in different ways. That's interesting you bring that up. So for a while, I would, like say, grow winter rye and Austrian winter pea, and plant it in September. And it would grow through the winter a little bit if it was sunny and no snow. And then in the spring, it just goes crazy. What I used to do at times, depending on if the field needed to be utilized right away, in the green stage, I would chop it with a brush hog. And if I had a flail mower, I don't, but if I had a flail mower, I would do that. But I would cut it at the green stage, and then I would till it in and give it 3 weeks to decompose, because it needs about 3 weeks, for this, if there's moisture. And then I would plant into that. But what I started to do is go away from that, because I wanted to get away from tillage. And also, when you buy cover crops seeds, those have to come from somewhere. Again, it's another input, another bringing in, and they weigh 50-pound bags of stuff, shipping and trucking and all that. And who knows what the source is and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, instead of buying so much cover crop seed and always replanting somebody else's seed from far out there, for the rye, for example, would let it head out, get to the stage where it was, finished and already popping out. And then I would mow it with the tractor in a brush hog. And that brush hog would grind it up, the straw, and the seeds would fall out because they were already popping out, would fall out, and the straw would mulch the seeds, and I would rain bird it, or if it was raining, oftentimes that time of year we would have rain, then it would grow, it would sprout and be this tall in 1 week after watering it. It would grow right through the straw. And then you get another crop, it'll grow up and head out again, and you get another planting, and it would do the same thing. And I've done that, I did that for many generations off that same planting. But each time it gets shorter and more crowded because the seeds are so many each time. It's exponential.
With clover, can you do the same thing with clover?
I've never done it with clover, but I would imagine you could. Buckwheat, I used to do it with buckwheat as a summer cover crop. Buckwheat, like if you want to talk about cover crops, that's a good thing we could continue talking about. The buckwheat's a good one for the summertime. You can get a couple generations out of one planting, because it'll seed out in 6 weeks or so. And it's a really easy one to grow. You want to plant it starting now, because you plant it too early, it'll die, it'll winter, it'll freeze. It's sensitive to frost. But once this time of year, we're getting closer to a frost-free time, about May 21, June 1st, we should be pretty safe. You plant it out, the buckwheat grows, it'll start to put out these beautiful white flowers, the honeybees love it, and then you can chop it down and actually just let it decompose, or wait until it gets to where it produces its own seeds that are viable, finished, ripe seeds that fall out, and then cut it down, and then those seeds will sprout again, and you'll get another generation at least, because it goes every like 6 weeks or so. And what's neat about buckwheat is, if I remember correctly, and I was really excited when I first learned this about buckwheat, is that phosphorus is one of those things that we need. Like, it's one of the big fertilizers. There's NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Phosphorus is one of the things that, like, if you see, like, for tomato growers or, marijuana growers or whatever, you're looking for, when the plant starts to flower and produce its fruit, cucumber, the actual fruit, that's when it's utilizing the phosphorus in the soil. So people will switch to a fertilizer that has a lot of phosphorus in it. So it's one of those really important ones that we need. So buckwheat, what it'll do is, oftentimes the soil has phosphorus in an insoluble form, meaning it's not soluble in water, and it's a very slow way, there's not much available. But when buckwheat grows, it actually brings the insoluble phosphorus up into itself. It has this magical ability somehow to bring that phosphorus into its tissue. And when you chop it back into the soil or put it in your compost pile, it makes it available as a soluble form of phosphorus. And then using that as your, so basically what it's doing is it's making available this phosphorus that oftentimes is plentiful, but your plants don't have access to as far as your tomato plant. But if you can use buckwheat, it converts it into the available form. So that's what's cool about all these crops. These living biotic, realm of cover crops and weeds and things, they're all here. We're using them in a way to convert these things in the soil into some kind of available plant food for us, for our plants, to our vegetables or whatever. So.
If you don't chop it by hand, does it do the same job?
It'll eventually just fall down. Yeah, it would, it'd just start to like fall down on its own, it will, because it's a real succulent plant, the buckwheat. It's not very sturdy. It's like, and it will fall over,
And release the phosphorus.
Yeah. I mean, you may, that's an interesting thing. I don't know if studies show how much you lose by not incorporating or putting in a compost pile right away, if it loses some of its. But I would imagine, since it's phosphorus, it's not like nitrogen, which is real volatile and going off. It's like, probably doesn't matter. It probably just is a real slow. Anytime you chop things in, it speeds up its activity, because you're introducing bacteria and everything, and you're getting it into the soil. So that's why, like, farming nowadays, organic farming, you're using machinery in order to like chop things or till it in. It speeds up the activity, but it also like kind of burns out the soils too, in a way. It's like we're going too fast. You're inspiring things to speed up, because we're like, oh, we got to make money, we got to feed people too, or whatever. So that's why oftentimes we chop things in, because it decomposes really fast. But I think it's better not to, or to gently work it in if you're going to. So I don't know if
Same thing with animals grazing it too. They release.
Yeah, I would think so with that. Yeah, if you could put, like, that's what a lot of people are doing, is they have cover crop areas, they're taking an area and they're planting something, then they put the animals in at the right time. Those animals eat that, and then they, poop it out as really amazing fertilizer. They're converting it, making it more available even in that, because the animal is doing a process on it too that's phenomenal. Like a cow is amazing how it chews its cud and then goes through all these different stomachs to actually break that down and make it available. And Lloyd could talk about that in biodynamics. The cow is the queen of the farm. So Emily, did you say?
I just wanted to say that the scythe is a great tool for cover crops.
Yeah.
Even if you have a big area, you get up around the scythe. You're not killing the hymen. You're not killing the ladybug.
Yeah.
Cut your cover crop with that.
And if you get one, learn how to sharpen it, because if it's not sharp and you don't know the technique of using it, it's kind of frustrating. And for the longest time, I had this scythe for 15 years now or so. And I was like, and I never could, it's just like, you're trying to use it and all these that just don't work, like trying to, like this or something. But it's this really specific, like, you're almost like sliding it across like this. We'd have to do a workshop just on learning how to use this. And you also like actually peen this blade. There's tools to like hammer it, to peen it out, to make it really thin, and then you sharpen it with a whetstone that you wear in a water thing on your hip. So and I got the privilege of going to Austria, where these are really commonly made, and making hay in the Alps. And it was my dream come true. And so it was like, and I got to like work with an Austrian farmer for just one day. And so.
Yeah, you do, but like a family using those in in synchronicity, it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Watch really cool videos on people using them and cutting a whole field and stuff.
Yeah, you can go, you can do a lot fast for sure once you get into the groove, and it feels so good, And the whole weed whip things, weed whackers, weed eaters, whatever you call them, man. I grew up using those things, and I used, I've been on all these different farms in my life, and I was on this one farm. There's a 100-acre farm that I kept horses. That's all I did. Like, I was a caretaker for horses. We didn't use them for plowing or working or anything. They were just people's horses that I took care of. But I had to weed eat this, all these fences on this farm, and I was like, oh my God, I hate that part of it, but I loved everything else. And, and over the years, I was just like, what is this about, these things? It's like this engine on my back and with gasoline and fumes, And then I got this, I really got it this year. I was like, think about how much of that nylon material is being put into the environment in a microscopic part, because it's wearing off the thing always as instantaneous as you're using it. And then what insects, what small mammals, what of everything is eating that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I never thought about that. How many tons of material, thousands or millions of tons worldwide, are we just putting into the environment like that? So I started thinking man, dude, that's every reason to give that thing up and go to something simpler that gives you sanity too. Because when you work with a scythe, you have peace of mind, it's like, and actually you can get really good, fence lines are a little more challenging, you can't get as close or whatever. But then you go to smaller sickles, they call them, like the hand sickle, or by hand weeding, or goats that are tethered in areas and they can work that area, or other animals that you can put along those fences. It's just at least a cool challenge to take on, instead of using the weed whips as much as we do, backing away from those kind of tools and seeing how we can do things in a more friendly way. I think a friendlier way to the environment, because for me, it's all about the environment at this point. I think that all these people in the world that are supposed, knowing, in the know, they're like, man, we got 70 years before total collapse or something, at the rate we're going, it's like, hey, how can we slow this down? And how can we really appreciate the life, the nature that we've been given, appreciate it and be more honoring of it and make it sacred again somehow, and so that's my thing, I'm not saying everybody needs to go do this, but that's just where I'm finding myself with what I do. And it's just the timing is perfect, I think, with what happened in the last year in the world, and just wow, we're at a turning point. It seems like for us to get more sustainable, more local, more, small community based, and just, work together. And so.
Question kind of for both you and Lloyd, and it's about soil structure. I don't know if anybody went to this really cool workshop a year ago, February, in Delta, and it's all about, paying much more attention to the soil than to the fertility, and then to what was grown on the soil. And especially, I think, as it has to do also with carbon sequestration.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wondered if you had anything more to say about soil structure, and how do we contribute best to that?
I think the best way to contribute to soil structure ultimately is no tilling. And then doing that idea of lasagna gardening, you know, sheep like mulching, you know, where you're doing layering and stuff and not messing with the soil at all. Don't, you know, maybe you dig it gently with a fork to aerate it a little bit, like a broad fork they call it, but don't disturb the soil too much and allow those organisms like the bacteria to do the aggregating thing where they actually help to make passageways, and the earthworm is making passageways, and the nematodes and the mycorrhizal fungal life is all so critical to building soil structure that soon as we plow it and till it and work it to certain depths especially. And plus when, you know, the old moldboard plow, and I used to work on farms where we plowed, you know, like you plowing this deep, you know, then we would go to skim plowing, so it's like a little less deep. But you're inverting the soil from like, you really want to keep your soils where like they, you know, the topsoil is topsoil for a reason, and the leaves are falling in nature and everything's decomposing on the surface and building the soil surface from the top down. And then when you invert it, you know, I get that there's times when maybe you have to take a field if you're a farmer and you're trying to like really get it to being less of a certain weed or something to make it plantable. But generally you don't want to invert it, you know, because you're bringing up those
Whole double digging thing.
I know, and some people do it like John Jevons and stuff, and I mean, but I think they're, you know, maybe they need to do that only in the beginning, and then eventually I wouldn't do it, you know. And I don't even know, like nowadays I'm lazy because I used to double dig gardens, and I like, my knees are sore partly from that. And like I'm at this point now where like, don't overwork the soils, do the least amount to the soil as possible, except just keep adding to it on the top, you know. So, and if I work the soil, it's only really shallowly with these tools and trying to get away from that even as much as possible. Does that answer? And then I don't know what.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think I used to manage a certified organic and biodynamic hemp farm in Hotchkiss, and there was one section, you know, they brought the tractors in there and then they did the land planing, and it just destroyed the soil structure. And no matter what I could do, and this guy's over here, they're growing hemp, and the gentleman, he asked me, he's like, you know, should I put the land plane out there? It's like, don't do it because
No.
it's going to destroy your soil structure. So it's absolutely critical to, you know, for healthy soils is to not destroy your soil structure. Don't compact, you know, keep off it. Have permanent pathways. Have like a spot you want to bring your tractor through there. You want to have like a row, and you don't want to get it everywhere else. So you wanted to really be careful and you protect these soils, especially out here, because these soils are so, they're precious. There's like, it's, you know, if they get oxygen in them, it's amazing. But if you squeeze it out, it's so tough to ever bring them back. So, you know, the mulching is the best thing I've seen to bring soil structure. And then our biodynamic remedy, the manure preparation, that is par excellence soil structure builder and worldwide known. That works all over the planet to build some of the best soils. And so I've been a part of a project over sustainable settings in Carbondale for the last 7 years. This is USDA funded research from the NRCS, but they did soil testing on 60 farms and ranches all across Colorado, everything from the conventional GMO into organic into the whack jobs off the road with the biodynamic farm. Well, in the last 7 years, they had their numbers on this soil test, and this is testing the life in the soil, and they've had to raise their metrics 2 different times because one farm outperformed everyone else, and this is the farm at sustainable settings, the work we're doing. So if you want to see soil structure being built, in the last like 7 years, we've built about 1 foot of topsoil in the most incredible structure, and we're doing it with homeopathy, and honestly, like the compaction that we have in our soil is maybe something a greater symptom of, the compaction between our ears. Literally, and think about us as a society. How we've been challenged over the last year or two to look at how we discriminate and how we look at other people and how we, how we relate and look at all these, beautiful faces here, and so we're so lucky. But there, we have. This is some of the work that this takes it to a whole nother level, but this is spiritual agriculture. So this is what we've been studying with Enzo Nastadi and the other work. And this takes it to a whole nother level where, you can just buckle up for a quick ride in the Hogwarts Express, but imagine now for a second, just if you dropped your prejudices of whatever you might have, of what you've learned or something, but imagine a world out there where there may be nature spirits and elemental beings and little fairies that are dancing, and they're just waiting for you to tune up and wake up and give something back, and then they might return tenfold, 20-fold to your garden. And imagine, world where like, the heavens, like we know, like, okay, I'm a Libra, right? I am the great balance act. But what if you could tune your plants to the Libra and to the Scorpio and to all those energies? So we've been working with that in the biodynamic calendar. And so imagine, it's easy for us to say, oh, I'm a Taurus, but think about, do you want to manifest that energy in your garden? So all the planets, they're all doing this great cosmic dance, and our biodynamic calendar will help us tune this in. So this is about a tuning, and so you have, if you go through life with a veil, you will only see so much. But if you could expand your consciousness to understand that maybe there's a whole heavenly host of angels that is just waiting on us to wake up and say, hello. Yes, we want to help. We want to build this bridge from heaven to earth. We want to create the new fertility, the new health, the new life. And then think about this, like my business partner, Brooks, at A Sustainable Setting, he's an artist. And when he started that 240-acre ranch learning center, because he came from an art point of view, he said, my basis of what I want to do here is trying to figure out what we as human beings are capable of. And so the work that's being done over there, like you can see, it's outperformed every other ranching system, farming system in Colorado. And that test also was done by the USDA throughout the whole country. And we still outperformed everybody there. And so this is about expanding our consciousness and our willingness. And this is something that when we took these spiritual agriculture courses with Enzo Nastades, he taught us that, maybe we are the remedies we've been waiting for. Maybe we can produce the homeopathy. Maybe these remedies that I was telling you about are crutches until we are able to take this next step. And so I would encourage you all just to open your minds a little bit to like this greater picture and say, here we are as these very capable beings on the planet. And, Scotty was showing these nice hand tools, and BTUs in to BTUs out. The human body is the most efficient machine on planet Earth. So what we can create with, with your meditations and your minds and new remedies is some of the most important work on the planet. And so there's a school for spiritual agriculture that started here. And I highly recommend, if you can take some classes with those guys who do it. And, we're just sitting in all this potential. And because we have sort of blinders on, you can just go through without seeing it. But if we can waken our farms to the unseen, to this other realm, that is where real fertility, real action starts to happen. Because then you become enlivened to a whole sequence of events that then you become into co-creation. You're not the creator, but you're a co-creator between the heaven and the earth. And this is some of the real, work we're doing here.
Woohoo! Oh-ho!
How does hoofed animals, do you ever put them on there?
I haven't at this point yet, but we're going to.
And
yeah.
As far as their compaction versus the aeration they're doing?
Yeah, I think for goats especially, it'd be very minimal. And it's, you're maybe not going to put them out there when it's like super, depending on the soil structure you have already. Like say if you're putting a hoofed animal out into a field that has a lot of plant growing in it, like say a really friable, like woven, lots of root structure, and it's wet even, it wouldn't destroy that soil structure. But if it's like not a lot of plant growing in there and it's just going to be a mud pit, you don't want to put him out there, you know what I'm saying? So, but like a goat is a pretty small animal, it's not probably going to do a whole lot to ruin anything that's a healthy. Like say back there, look how lush and green it is. There's a lot of alfalfa back in there. Even if it was like really wet, the goats are not going to destroy that. And again, when you're using animals on a farm, you're oftentimes rotating them before they have too much time to do anything destructive to that area. It's usually a rotational thing.
Yeah, and cows, cows get a bad rap. They're the great polluters, right, and all this stuff. But reality, the cow is the most giving animal on the planet. If you think the Hindus, they know that cow is sacred. The cow has 4 stomachs. So the cow is the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, the abomasum. So when the cow chews this grass, it actually is a 2-week process of digestion it's going through. And the cows, if you were to stretch their digestive tract out it'd be over half the length of a football field. They're the largest digestive tract of all the mammals. So the cows are the only animal on the planet that actually can feed off 1 acre but fertilize 2. So the cow manure has incredible potentiality. And so we noticed we got cows, and year 1, they grazed the pasture. It was nice. Year 2, what happened though? Because the cows had their hooves and they've been grazing and they poop, and they're tuning their digestion to your soils and tuning it up. Next year, the whole field was full of red clover, and it wasn't there before. It was just the most beautiful thing. And so having these animals in right rotation and right relationship is key, I think. And yeah, so just another, you know, I'm not always, I do buy some stuff, so I'll just tell you real quick. I would recommend a few things because, like you were saying, in the soils, right, where we have high phosphorus soils here, but every soil test you get will say you have no available phosphorus, really. Like, we have super high potassium. We're good on these other elements, but phosphorus, so that's why I use the valerian, that pressed juice. That one's the best, but you can also, like you were saying, get the CalPhos and put that into your compost pile. For your soils, if you want to have, there's a few things. Boron, you know, borax 20 mule team, but go get the organic boron at the store, and the soluble, or they have boric acid. But boron is like this first nutrient that's used to uptake nutrients, so the plants, so that's needed before the silica can take off and the other elements can start doing there. And we're low on boron. So if you know, you guys have tree problem, right? We have tree problems around here. We have, you see the, you know, there's borers and there's other issues. And so there's actually, the transport system isn't working. So boron, just a small dose of that is amazing for getting your transport system and getting your plants to work. And so just, you need boron, manganese, cobalt, and I would do the rock phosphate. So, and if you could put those into a compost pile, you're going to have the best results. I only use homeopathic amounts, but just getting a few of those micronutrients, I think, is really key to unlocking the soil fertility here.
And some of the kelp would supply some of
Yes,
those, right?
yes,
So
absolutely.
I'm not sure how much of boron it has in it, but
Yeah, I also use azomite, which is an ancient volcanic ash from Utah. It stands for A to Z of minerals in the earth, azomite, and it's sold on 6 continents, and they use it for increasing, and it has everything in it. So you can just use that one too. It's like $25 for a 50-pound sack of that.
yeah, I've got some of that too.
Really nice.
But again, I only use that stuff in like small
Yes.
amounts. Like this cart, when I'm mixing up a soil block mix, it'll be 40 gallons volume at a time. It'll have 2 cups of kelp in it.
Nice.
You know, so a 50-pound bag of really good grade kelp that's from clean waters, they consider, you know, it's organically sourced, $100 for 50 pounds or something, lasts a long time. And we'll also just sprinkle it sometimes when we're transplanting into a furrow, right? You know, but mostly we use it because it feeds the plant when it's in its nursery stage, which I think that's really so important, you know. And plus it feeds it slowly throughout the whole season, and that block just deteriorates or breaks down and continually feeds. But little traces of these things are, I think, key.
Biochar?
I don't, but I don't know have you worked with biochar? I've heard
I
people.
don't. I'd rather make compost, honestly. But I mean, biochar, you know, it works. There's in the Terra Preta, there's like 1,000 years of fertility where they built that. So I think it's important, though, if you use biochar, especially out in these soils, is actually you soak it with like the equisetum tea and some of the other, you know, the teas and compost, and get that nutrient load stored up. Or otherwise, it takes a few years to really get kick-started out here.
Hmm.
How do you naturally aerate your soils?
I naturally aerate them with things like mallow roots. So I think the best way to aerate them is to allow the soil organisms to do all of that. You know, on farms, like in the past, I'd be on a place where, like, say, soils, because it is like, you know, if you buy some land that's been farmed conventionally or even organically, you know, the amount of tractor trips on a field in a summer for just haying is quite a lot. And, you know, and sometimes they're not optimally on the soil when it's as dry as it could be. And so that soil is getting compacted. So you can get somebody to subsoil, you know, like pull a big ripping, you know, it's a deep plow that breaks up and loosens the soil. But I would say if you're doing small gardens and stuff, to get a broad fork. and to gently break the soil, to work the soil, to aerate it with that. And then ultimately, after a while, you're never walking on those beds. You always have permanent beds and pathways. And then by encouraging all the all those organisms in the soil, earthworms and the bacteria actually help to promote passageways, and then you can plant things like certain radishes that are huge, man, and they'll grow to 2 feet, and then you leave them in the field and they decompose and they leave these big channels. So they're like tillers, in their own
Or the
realm.
daikon, right?
Yeah, big daikons. I mean, they'll sell them specifically. If you look in cover crop or green manure cover crop sections of seed catalogs, or just look this up online or whatever, good natural plant roots for tillage, to break open the soils. But I have a lot of, they call Malva neglectica. It's the neglected mallow here, and I love it. I put it in my salad mix. People eat it around here. It's one of the weeds we put in the salad mix, and it's a really nice plant for mucilaginous, really good on the digestive system, and it has a serious root that goes pretty deep, and it is challenging to, once you get them, and you get a bigger plant of it, you got to hack it to get it out of there. But it's working its magic by putting in these deep roots and then bringing up nutrients to the top. And then when you chop that plant in, it's bringing those nutrients up and feeding the topsoil. So you're getting aeration and that, Yeah, and then leaving the roots in. Yeah, if you try to dig them up, it'd be so much work. I mean, ideally that root, would just slowly die and slough off or whatever, deteriorate and feed the soil. But it usually will keep coming back for a while too, and you just keep chopping it. But that's great. It's just continually feeding the soil. And you eat that too, make those a part of your diet. Well, in this climate, I used to farm in Vermont, in Northwest Washington, in Pennsylvania, and then the first time I was in the desert, I used to be down in New Mexico in the Silver City area farming, and I learned real quickly down there, no raised beds. In fact, I think the indigenous people here, the Native American people in some parts of Colorado, New Mexico, actually did these like a pan idea. I think they called it, people referred to it as waffle beds or something, or waffle structure, whatever. The idea is that the more surface area you have in a raised bed in this kind of climate in the summer months is going to be more drying, unless you're really getting that all mulched really well. And so, in places where it's really wetter, like in the Northwest or Northeast and some parts of the Northwest, like a raised bed is good because it's better drainage and you get more surface area where that bed will warm up quicker in the spring when you're looking for the soils to warm up to become more viable. Here, things warm up really quick. They start to dry out really quick. So unless you have a lot of mulch to mulch those beds, I mean, raised beds are ideal because you're getting deeper, deeper, deeper. And if you have a small area, the smaller the area you farm or grow on, the more intensive it can be, because if you have a nice, rich, deep bed, you can plant the plants at higher density, closer together, like the French intensive method, they would call that, or something. So raised beds could be really great, as long as you're protecting them from the intensity of the sun and the drying winds, That's my take on it. I don't know. Yeah. I haven't at this point. No. I think it'd be a great idea though,
I think I've done it, and I would recommend, you're going to do hugel culture, which is basically burying wood in the earth and then trying to use that as eventually turn into a sponge to collect water. But the main thing is, I really, just like what he was saying about the wind and everything, people want to build these hugel mounds. But you have to, it's ideal to put a big log on one side of your mound and a log on your other, and then fill in between. But if you have those logs on the outside, will keep all the moisture and kind of keep that evaporating like you were talking about. But you need to put animal manure in your hugel mounds here, because otherwise they will just be like a pile of sticks and a piece of dirt. And some people have done that, and they're like, hugel doesn't work. But no, you gotta make it work for this climate. So adding the animal manures and getting the water in there, then after a few months, that starts to really work. And so it's really a beautiful thing. You can sink a lot of wood into the ground that way. But you definitely need the fertility on top to keep it, or
Mhm.
otherwise it's not going
Mhm.
to happen.
Mhm. Mm.
Hey Lloyd, on your fermented plant juices
Yes.
and on your bucket juices, you go over again the application ratios of each of those.
Sure. So, okay, the application rate on the fermented plant juice, which is sugar, 1 equal parts sugar by weight to plant material. And it's used basically 1 per 100. So 1 teaspoon per 100 teaspoons, basically, or a teaspoon in a gallon, basically. That's all you need. And for this, for any of the ferments I do in the buckets, it's 10 to 1. 10 parts water, or basically 9 parts water, 1 part ferment. So dilute, dilute, dilute. Like on Dr. Bronner's, and he was saying dilute, 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 but we've studied Enzo and the homeopathy. In homeopathy, you're making these remedies by diluting and diluting, diluting. So I started thinking about that. But that's these, and they become actually more energetically enlivened with the higher dilution you can get. So in the biodynamics, we have special ways to potentize all these things and remedies to make them even more. So you're using small quantities, but they have a big effect. Sure.
If you have a relatively large area and you need to do like a icky the back to the backpack thing,
Mhm.
do that.
You can.
So my next question, and I'm I'm evolving, so it's not throw anything at me. If you once were using a backpack thing for G4, is that usable for anything else? But
I mean, I would say it should go to the trash dump as soon as possible. I hate to put that over there, but that's where it needs to go. I wouldn't. I mean, people do use these orchard sprayers and other things, but if anything, if instead of, are you trying to promote the life or the death, And what we're trying to do is bring in the life. So I would be careful. If it's cheap enough just to throw it out and get a new one.
And the FPKs or the yeast sit.
So that fermented plant juice sat for 2 years now. That one, I don't know if you got a chance to smell it, but that one is incredible. These other ferments, yeah, they can go pretty bad pretty quick, and they get smelly, and the worst they, it's not like the Dutch cheese where the worse it smells, the better it tastes. This stuff is, no, I think like 10 days on those is good enough. But now Equisetum, the horsetail, we'll make that one. And ideally, we store that one for like even 6 months or a year in like in like a root cellar like condition.
you have to extract the juice from the fermented.
Yep.
Will you store that? Say for like 2 years or whatever. You keep the freezer
No, no, you need to put a lid on it to kind of keep, because then microorganisms and stuff will get in there and it'll get kind of weird on you.
and it keeps kind of like fermented.
It does. You have to kind of check it, maybe loosen the lid every now. We luckily in my spot where I store it is pretty cool. It stays like 60 degrees year round, so that works really good. But yeah, they will go funky on you pretty quick, and you'll know when they do.
Do you make any IMO around here? Because it just seems hard to find if it's really dry. I guess it's not really dry, maybe.
Yeah, so IMO is the indigenous microorganisms, and it's mainly out of the Korean natural farming. But the wind biodynamics, we also make it too, and so yeah, and then if you make in good compost, you also grow in good indigenous microorganisms too. So there's definitely it's the system to make the IMOs is really easy. You just it's in the book, but you take rice hulls or rice, and basically in a basket, and you put it in the leaf mold down there underneath, like where you want to collect it, and in a few days those indigenous microorganisms will populate that. Then you just add the brown sugar again to that equal parts, and then you have a whole stash of indigenous microorganisms that you can spray out. And that's going to super boost everything, because we need to, I mean, the indigenous is something so profound. I mean, we say that lightly, but if, we have some, it's the indigenous, there's a lot of history here in these soils and whatnot. And so the Utes they used to live here, but they were killed off, and, numerous other atrocities have happened in this area too. So when you work with the indigenous microorganisms, you're working with that intelligence that's in the land. And so, there's a lot going on there, but then you could take that into a whole nother level to transmute and transform that. And that's good.
any other questions for Lloyd and Scott? We're getting to about time.
Just one quick one on the fermented juices.
Yep.
What point of the process are you using these, like for your finished compost, for your
Good
soil
question.
blocks, for
I like spraying them on as a foliar. But you also put this, put in your soil blocks. A teaspoon of that in that mixture, it's going to give you all that fermentation. And that's just going to start boosting all those beneficials. So I use it. I don't use it after, like once the plant's gone to flowering, like if it's like a cannabis or something like that, you wouldn't want to use it then. Or you not too late, like when the plant's still in a vegetative state, ideally.
put on the ground too?
You could put it on the ground, but I like to spray it on it's better on the plants. The plants really absorb it. Trees love it. Yeah. Yeah, cow manure is incredible. I was explaining how the cows got all this extra fertility. It's got all this life, and the cows actually, if they still have their horns intact and whatnot, they are very sensitive beings, and they actually will tune. If you have cows out in a pasture, they'll tune their digestion to what your soils need too. So they could actually, through their regurgitation and going through the four stomachs and all that process, they'll actually tune that manure to your land. And so, yeah, what I do, I love nothing better than going out and collecting cow pies. And I'll collect the fresh ones, or I'll go collect dry ones. I'll get buckets and buckets, and I'll just go mulch my garden with it on stuff that's hungry, like tomatoes or squash or things like that. You can use. I just put that right on, and it's the best. Well, I usually like it dry. It doesn't take for it to dry out here.
But not it sticks. Yeah, like I mean, a lot of people say you have to wait.
You have some plants that are really hungry that don't want to wait, like tomato, a squash, maybe a cucumber. But you can use more fresh on those kind of things, but everything else you kind of want to digest a little bit in your compost. I didn't even get into that.
That's a whole nother workshop.
Yeah.
You could give a really quick lowdown on that prep, how you make it.
All right.
It's
all
cool.
right,
It's
all
really
right.
cool.
Here, can we get two of those buckets out here?
Yeah.
Phil? Very quick. Let's
Maybe
see.
take that one. Get it in.
That jar, it says Horner in it. Yeah, next one to it, close, yes. And then one of those white one, crystal one. All right. So in biodynamics, in biodynamic agriculture, Rudolf Steiner came up with 9 biodynamic homeopathic remedies to stimulate the life of the soil. So if you want to build good soil structure, use this one. This is the cow manure that's been put in a cow's horn and buried over the winter. And when it's dug up in the spring, so it's about an 8-month process out here. But when you dig it out, it is completely full of those microorganisms, totally loaded, especially if you cure it out right. And so this one will stimulate all the soil life. So this is enough for an acre. This is like conventionally, this is how much they use. It's a quarter cup per acre. And so you just put it. So think about this. Now, cow manure, I was telling you all the qualities, but this is super enhanced cow manure. This is like, you think about the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, right? And you think about Thanksgiving, there's always that image of like the horn. Well, there's also like esoterically, you think about the horn as almost like think of the cochlea in our ear, the little ear hammer. That's like a listening device, right? So these horns are actually tuning devices for the cows. So that's why a lot of the cows don't have horns anymore, because these cows are dumb. They're dumb down. Enzo said once a cow's had its horn removed, it's got a headache for the rest of its life. And so you can imagine, so it would be like having some part of us removed. It would not be a nice thing to go through life like that. So anyway, so we use these cow horns as a way to super amplify these different remedies. So this one, you put about that much in it, and then you stir. You create a vortex. Everybody should do this. It's a beautiful thing. So you can look in there and you can see that's already going. And then I would get it going really good, and then I'll switch direction. And so this is like a homeopathic potentization process, right? And so what happens is you can this spinning's happening, and these are all intelligences. Each one of these preparations has gone through this process, and it contains living information, living microorganisms, all that. It contains something beyond just the ordinary. It contains the extraordinary in an amazing way. And so this will stimulate all the life of your soil. So you're spinning around, and then you're kind of pulling energy in, right? You're pulling it in, it generates, and then you switch direction. That moment of chaos, so it's like where that implosion happens, that's when the imprint of this information goes into the water. So these are forces, right? You can't see forces, right? But you can see the effect. That's gravity, right? You can't see gravity. You can see the effect of gravity or electromagnetism. Well, it's hard to see that, if I tell you this contains forces, it'd be hard to see, but energetically, there's a lot going on. So we are transferring the forces that are in here into the water. Water becomes the carrier. You spray that out, and you'll see a dramatic improvement of the soil structure and everything that's going on below ground. Opposite of that is the Horn silica. So this is crushed quartz crystal. We use 24 karat gold to potentize in here, so you can see the little gold flakes. And this is put in the bucket. And you would really, like, for the farm, like, you could use like that much. That's all you need. But this is, so think about this for 1 second. Silica, quartz. Everybody knows, like, you've seen the books on crystal healing and the crystal Bibles and all that good stuff. But think about, like, a magnifying glass, right? The magnifying glass will increase the sun's energy by, like, 10, 20, 100 fold. It'll start a fire if you want to. That's pure silica. Now think about a microchip. What's microchips made out of? Tiny, tiny, thin, super thin silicon wafers. But on that small amount of silica, vast amounts of information is stored. So we are actually storing information with these preparations. So this is the information from the sun. So this is what you're doing to increase all the life above ground, the silica. So this one will stimulate everything that's going on above ground. Photosynthesis, plant metabolism. If you want your crops to taste better, if you want to have more aromatic qualities, better keeping qualities, things like that, you use this one. This improves quantity, the earthly, and this is the quality, the cosmic. So this is what you use, like, in the biodynamic vineyards to make your grapes taste really, really good. This is like spraying an intensification of the sun's energy. So those are the two, like, polarities. And the this is like actually an atmospheric fertilizer. So we're trying to spray it up, and we want it to float in the air. I love it when it wafts in the air and you can see it go to the neighbors, and that way. This one, you want to stir in more big drop. The horn manure, you want it, like, to hit the ground with big droplets, hit the earth, and that's when that backpack sprayer is really good to use that to get it out there. Because you only need like 3 gallons for an acre. It's so small what you use.
It just reminds me that a little bit of gold is in there. It's like an incredible documentary called Aluna, which is about the Kogi elders in Colombia. Anyways, there's indigenous caretakers of this land for a long time, and they really keep everything alive and vital, and they're a lot about sacred places, and keeping those places alive helps the water, this whole thing. But one thing that they said, like, these looters come in and they take all the gold that's along the rivers that these indigenous people have buried.
Oh,
And what he was saying is that the gold they put there intentionally because it helps the water do water thing, like the be itself, flow, be mighty and clean. And so when you talk about a little bit of gold in there, it makes me think of that connection.
yes. Yeah, and gold is the metal related to the sun too, and so the gold has always been used for a long time. So imagine fertilizing your farm with a little bit of homeopathic gold. What a beautiful gesture that is. And then imagine your intentions and your thoughts about that and the love you can put into that. And when you make these remedies, you can be the conduit to build the bridge from heaven to earth to create the new fertility, and that's really our work here.